So we were trying to achieve a requirement where we were saying with the setting, right? And then setting should have a mode, if it is a dev mode or if it is a production mode. If it is a dev mode, we should use console logger. If it is a production mode, we should use http logger. And in order to achieve that, there are various options, right? And then we wanted to achieve with the factory pattern. Let's create a factory class which will give you the instance of either http logger or console logger based on the mode, right? And that is what the factory design pattern comes with. Factory design pattern says that if you have a family to inject, let's say logger is a family that you want to inject. Logger is our abstraction, and then there is a specialized classes like console logger and then http logger. So if you want to inject any of them, you can create a factory, and the return type is the logger as a abstraction base class. Logger is the return type, and then when you ask based on the mode, it will either return whichever child class, either it is a console logger or it is a http logger. So I'm in the stack bliss again, and I'll go to my own repositories, and we were in the 6 number session. I'll click that, and there was some error going on. We were continuing in this. So far we did is, let's go to our core, and we created logger creator, I guess. Yeah. So in logger creator, as we discussed, like there are two options to achieve it. This factory can create the instance of this classes, or factory can ask the instance of the classes from the Angular. There are two options, right? The first option is like, if you go here in the app module, in this provider list, we said logger creator is a use factory, and then pass some of the stuff we were passing, right? So there are two options. We can say logger creator, and it needs configuration, and it needs let's say http logger as well as console logger, and then it can decide. So let's do that one first. Let's say http logger and then console logger. So if you give three things to the factory can read the console configuration, and based on that it can return. So in order to pass this http logger and console logger, you need to first provide them, correct? And then http logger and console logger, if you go their classes, are they already provided in the root? Yes, it is provided. And then console logger is also provided in the root, right? So then if you go to the factory logger creator, and here we can say I am getting configuration, the first thing, configuration, and the type is config, and I can pull the type from core. And we defined as an app-config, right? So if you see app-config, we have interface. So this is what the type that we need here. And then second, we need http logger, comma, console logger. And based on the mode which is coming from the config object, based on the mode, if it is dev, let's return the console logger. So I didn't create the variable here, sorry. This is http logger, and this one is console logger. Oops. Config.mode. Right? Is there any spelling mistake here? No, right? Oh. So let's see now what's going on. Are we getting the logger? If I go to my console and I save it, it is creating an error. It is saying cannot read log debug of undefined. That means that logger is not yet injected. So let's see why it is not injected. So if you go to the app module and see here, we have provide logger logger creator, and that logger creator is coming from core. So our factory function is there. Let's debug the factory function and see whether it is getting it or not. So one option is to go to the factory function and log it here, some of the data, like console.log the configuration file. Let's see if config object is coming or not to us. Yeah, so config is coming, and inside the config we have just this guy, the URL. So let's build the config first. So if you go to app module, so we do not have a mode property, right? See, our config object is just the URL. So go to the app module and see here I'm just putting now a string value. Ideally, config is how it looks like this. It has a base API URL and mode. So that's the mistake. I have to inject the object, a literal object. So our goal is to have two kind of configurations. So let's create them. And this which we are creating here is like let's say dev config, and we will need this config coming from a window object. Let's call it config. Or if it is not there in the window object, then basically we will create our dummy object called as mode is equal to mode is dev and base API URL. Let me copy that. Base API URL. So base API URL is this URL. For dev, it could be nothing, right? For dev console logger is there, so base API URL doesn't make sense. So we don't even need that. We'll leave it empty. So as any. So this is one configuration. The another configuration we want is production configuration. And why I called window.config? Any idea? Anybody? So in configuration, why am I? Do you know what kind of operator it is? So this operator is guard operator, and it is JavaScript guard operator. What it does, it will first ask for this object. If it is present, it will assign that object to here. If it is not present, then it will give this object. So this is called as guard operator. So I have used guard operator, and I have assumed that whenever this page will load, whenever our app will load in the browser, we will already have some configuration there, correct? And that configuration will come from the release. Let's say when you are releasing your project, so when you if you are using TFS, let's say, right? So if you are using TFS and then you are releasing your project with some configuration, web.config file should have some value, and when you deploy that code to production, then web.config will have production configurations, and in that configurations our mode will be prod and base API URL will be this request response in /API, correct? And then when you load your project, before you load your project, you will do some some server will first host your app, right? Server will render a page, home page, where you will have your app. So are you getting it? Let's say if node.js is your server, so node.js will serve a page called as index.html or something. If C# or .NET or Apache or whoever is serving your page, the home page, that will be served from the server. So if it is served from the server will put some configuration in the window object. They will put it before it served to you. So because server is, let's say, sending you a index.html page first, and in that HTML page you have a your app, let's say app root, your app tag, and then your script is there. From script you are loading all of your modules and everything. So before that also there is a chance that server can put window.configuration, and which is equal to all of this data. So when you load your Angular application, you will assume that your configuration is coming already from server, and that has this data. Therefore only you do not need to change the code after that. Either you will get, always you will get a one configuration file, configuration object. So I wrote two just for demonstration, but basically it will be a one config always here like this. That's it. And that this is the code that you will have always. It should come from the window object. If it is not coming, then I'll just assume console logger, right? That's the case. So we do not want this another configuration here. So we want our configuration coming from window object. That means server is sending us some configuration. If it is not sending us, then I'm using my own configuration, that the debug one, and then put the dev and then assume that everything is console logger. So when we deploy it into QA, we make sure that when it is served from QA server will set the configuration with the production configs. So that's the server setting. So from UI side, we fixed our code now. So once you have this configuration and the factory class, which is reading and at runtime, it is delivering some service, we have fixed our design. There's no code change now onwards. So let's finish this. So once you do this configuration, and then mostly let's inject this as a value, right? Rather than URL. So I'll put this configuration. And from there onwards, it should work. Let's see what's going on now. So now we are providing for the config dependency injection token. I'll use value called as config, and this config is an object which has dev and then base URL, base API URL. So error, this is not a function. So let's debug the factory one more time by refreshing it. Let's see our configuration is injected properly or not.
Even I got both the errors. Like first, log debug is undefined, and then this one.
Yeah.
And after this,
right. So now we are saying our config object is going there, correct? And then after that, let's do what factory is doing, whether it is returning or not. So I can debug it by opening it in the new page. So if you get this kind of issue, start debugging it. That's the one thing you can do. Once it is loaded, go to F12. And let's go to, so it is saying this.logger.log debug. So it is giving some object where log debug function is not at all. So let's see what kind of object it is returning. So I will search our file called as logger creator, because that is the guy who is returning the data object. So here we can put our debug and refresh the page one more time. So by that time, this, any doubt on this log coding in this code? This is all clear, right?
yeah.
Okay. And we are injecting here, and then we are injecting this as a dependency to the factory. So it came here, and configuration has a dev, and we are returning the instance. So it is returning a console logger as a function. It is not returning the instance of that console logger. That's the problem. Now if you go to the component, let's say which component we are logging, line item, right? Line item component. And here what kind of logger we are getting? Logger is coming as a function. It is not coming as an object, right? So that's the problem. So it is not giving us the object of the logger class. Rather, it is just giving the logger creator. We were using class here, right? That was the issue. We have to use the instance, because Angular should provide the instance. That was the correction. Angular will provide the instance, and now it should work also. Console logger should work. That was my typo, right? Console logger is working, and then you can switch it also. So let's switch it. So you don't even need to provide. That's what my theory is, because we already have a provide in. So see, it is working, right? And now I want to switch it to production config. So what I'll do is I'll just comment out for this now, and just comment up, uncomment this one, and assume that this is being done from the server. You'll still get the config, but data is coming like this now. You saw that, right? It is working. So our HTTP loggers are still working, and this is the switch without any code change, right? And from here you can change so before even loading this page, if you have a window object with the data of config, whatever config you can inject. So I can inject from here also, window.config, and then put some data here. Same like mode, and then whatever mode it is, demo mode or something. And then once you do this, just reload your page. But when right now I'll do that reload page, it will go away, this configuration. But basically before reload page, before even you put your script, we want to inject this window dot. This is the opportunity that we are giving to our server guys, that they will inject. But in this case, what is the problem? Can anyone tell?